as he falls to the ground, shoots and scores! First pitch, base hit! Walk off! Catch and shoot, 3, bang! Dagger!
Hey folks, welcome back for episode 2 of the White Noise Sports Podcast with Tanner White. Thanks for the warm reception of the first episode and for everybody that shared and interacted with it. I teased this topic at the end of last episode, but it's clearly one of the biggest stories in the sporting world right now. Today I'll be giving you my 2024 NFL first round mock draft. We start off with the Bears at number 1, Caleb Williams, quarterback, USC. Best player available, best pro traits. This could have been his spot last year too if he had come out then. He really is that good. Picking second, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU. Best Heisman season ever. Tons of potential rushing value and it factor. I don't believe for a moment that this pick will be J.J. McCarthy despite the recent rumors. Daniels is the more talented quarterback, and if you're in Washington's position, you have to swing for the fences. Picking third, the Patriots, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. The Patriots brought back Jacoby Brissett, and he should be something like a league average starter, so it isn't imperative that they pick a QB here. Marvin Harrison is the son of a Hall of Famer and is far and away the best receiving prospect in the class, probably the best overall prospect in years. Think Julio Jones or AJ Green level hype. He would instantly be the top target and should go over 1,000 yards. If they do pick a quarterback, it likely won't pay off that much up front, so I'm going with Marvin Harrison Jr. here. Like just about everybody else that's made a mock draft here, I'm having the first trade at 4, the Vikings from the Cardinals, Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina. The Vikings are not going to stand pat with picks 11 and 23 if they're going to get the guy they want. May has a very high ceiling, but a low floor. He does get to throw to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, and only has to compete with Sam Darnold. Moving on to the Chargers at number 5, Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington. Can you name the top 3 receivers left on the Chargers roster after Keenan Allen and Mike Williams leaving? The Chargers go get the second best receiver in this class. Odunze tested incredibly at the combine with a 39-inch vert and a 4.45 40 at 6'3", 212 pounds. He looks the part of an NFL X receiver, and the Chargers have to give Justin Herbert some semblance of a chance downfield. Now for the Giants at 6, Malik Nabers, wide receiver, LSU. I think the better long-term bet here would be Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame. However, the Giants are in a somewhat similar position to the Chargers with what they're paying their quarterback. Does anyone see a problem with that? Anyway, they're another offense that desperately needs someone that can catch the football and run with it. Malik Nabers looks like the next great LSU receiver. Aren't they all? Now we've got another trade in the top 10 at number 7. The Raiders from the Titans. Brian Thomas, wide receiver, also LSU. Seriously, LSU receivers have a monopoly over the league. Devontae Adams is seemingly the only target in the Raiders offense anymore, and the 6'4" Thomas turned 68 catches into 17 touchdowns last year. This pick does assume that they either try to draft Michael Penix in the second round, or they roll with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Number 8, the Falcons. Dallas Turner, linebacker, Alabama. Either Jared Verse or Dallas Turner would solidify a need for the Falcons here. Their offense is largely complete. They better not even be tempted on that side of the ball. Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree haven't re-signed, and those were the only 2 that had more than 6 sacks on the Falcons roster last year, as Atlanta finished 6th worst in the league in total sacks with 42. Dallas Turner could play on or off the ball and have a huge impact either way. Pick number 9, the Bears. Jared Verse, edge, Florida State. Considering all the offensive additions this offseason so far, the Bears are in kind of a similar spot to the Falcons in a lot of ways. After quarterback, both teams desperately needed to improve their defensive front this offseason. Jared Verse is about as steady as they come. His last 3 years in college produced 9.5, 9, and 9 sacks again. Like seemingly every top edge rusher nowadays, he put up great numbers at the combine too. His 40 was 4.58. He managed 31 reps of bench, which is absolutely astounding, and a 35-inch vert. He's one of those edge rushers that I expect to start right away and produce in year 1 and for a long time to come. Now I'll try and give you my best Goodell. With the 10th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia. If Brock Bowers doesn't go any earlier than this, the Jets take the best player available. He has no competition for the top tight end spot in this draft class or even in most NFL teams' current lineups. He immediately becomes one of Aaron Rodgers' best friends and probably makes a Pro Bowl push as a rookie, much like Sam Laporta did in Detroit this season. You have to look at his film from Georgia and think he's going to make some all-pro teams down the line. We expect the Vikings to give up pick number 11 here to the Cardinals. Cardinals from the Vikings, Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. Typically, it doesn't take quite this long for the top tackle to come off the board. Full disclosure, I don't think this will happen. I think at least one or two teams in the top 10 will pass on all the skill positions and infuriate their fans. That said, Joe Alt is 6'9". He's a two-time All-American, ran a 4.51 shuttle and a 5.05 40. Are you kidding me at that size? If you commit to Kyler Murray, you commit to protecting him with a guy like Joe Alt, period. Now we move to the Broncos with pick number 12, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. This is the pick that bumps Michael Penix out of the first round, unfortunately. There's just more to think about with Bo Nix and Penix, so J.J. is probably the safer option here. The Broncos have Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci rostered after the Russell Wilson deal. J.J. has great intangibles, an A-plus attitude, and will do whatever it takes to try and win the starting job. I will note that the Broncos have a good chance of trading up, and J.J. is definitely not guaranteed to be here at 12, meaning they may have to take him earlier. Next, at unlucky number 13, but I do see this as one of the safer picks in this first round, the Tennessee Titans. Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle, Oregon State. The Titans can't lose their identity as a smash-mouth team just because Derrick Henry left. I assure you, becoming a pure spread team with Will Levis at quarterback is an idea doomed to fail. Because I'm the master of this mock draft reality, the Titans have already traded back at this point in the draft, and you have some offensive weapons on your roster. Get a guy who can allow them to be productive by mauling people in the run game and bringing good technique in pass protection. Continuing the strong offensive line theme here for the first round with pick 14, the Saints. J.C. Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama. The Saints' Ryan Ramczyk seems like he could be heading for early medical retirement, making this an immediate need if that's how his knee injury plays out. There are obviously other options for the Saints, like edge or tight end, but here's a 342-pound behemoth that can start on day one at several different O-line spots and play any of them very well. We move on to pick 15 for the first defensive back off of the board in my mock draft. The Colts at number 15, Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo. Quinyon Mitchell is sort of an average-sized NFL corner at 6 foot 195, but ran a 4.33 40, had a 38-inch vert, and probably shocked everyone in the room with 20 bench reps. Physicality off the chain, fantastic combine numbers, plus unreal advanced coverage metrics in college. Those are how you make the kind of leap that Mitchell has. If you would have asked anybody who the top corner off the board was a month ago, very few NFL scouts or executives would have said Quinyon Mitchell, until now. This is another great example of exactly what the Combine can do for you. For the 16th pick in the first round, the Seahawks. Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle, Washington. Fautanu can play anywhere on an NFL offensive line eventually, even if his technique is a bit rougher than some of the other top tackles. Being a little bit smaller and lighter than the other guys too, at 6'4" and 317, did lead him to test well athletically, but teams are going to want him to gain weight before he hits the starting lineup. Nevertheless, he should really help in keeping clean the end of Geno Smith's career and whoever his eventual successor is. Alright, now we're halfway through the first round. Here comes pick number 17 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. My fingers are crossed on this one. Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa. This is the number one wing and a prayer pick of the first round for my mock draft. The thing you can't argue against with DeJean is versatility. He could be an impact player at corner, nickelback, sub-linebacker, free safety, kick and punt returner, and yes, it would mean DeJean being selected even earlier than the last white starter at corner, the Giants' great Jason Sehorn. A man can dream. I imagine that'll be the most controversial pick. Now, back-to-back corners. Number 18, the Bengals' Nate Wiggins, cornerback, Clemson. T. Higgins, franchise tagged. Jamar Chase, huge bag. The Bengals also bring in Trent Brown. They retain Orlando Brown on their offensive line. I just don't see the need on offense. Wiggins played against great competition. He's 6'1". Oh yeah, did I mention he ran a 4.28 40? No matter how important you think the 40 is or isn't, he's going to go high because of that number alone. Wiggins is still just 20 years old and has lots of time to learn how to be an NFL corner. Next up at number 19, the Rams. This might be the most painful pick of the entire first round. Byron Murphy II, defensive tackle, Texas. Let me try to suppress my trauma over Aaron Donald retiring real quick. Although Byron Young was a fantastic pass rusher for the Rams as a rookie, they are now in need of a new dynamite interior presence, especially against the run. Don't overthink it and take Byron Murphy II, where you have a huge hole in the middle of your defense. Now to the Steelers at pick number 20, Amarius Mims, offensive tackle, Georgia. Another unspeakably huge tackle at 6'8", 340. He should help ease the transition to Russell Wilson at quarterback. Yes, the Steelers' offense hasn't been very good in a long time, but it isn't all about a lack of playmakers. Their offensive line is league average at best, and that's not good enough to win with a poor scheme. Add a huge road grader like Amarius Mims, and watch the offense improve right before your eyes. We come now to pick 21 for the first round. It's the Dolphins on the clock. Graham Barton, interior offensive lineman, Duke. Barton is interesting to project because he's certainly been mocked as a tackle by some experts and really could play either one. In terms of interior, Barton is likely the safer pick than Oregon's Jackson Powers Johnson. It all comes down to experience, which draft classes affected by the COVID year have more of than ever. He's essentially a 4-year starter, always playing against great competition, and he will fill a big need for the Dolphins on the interior of their offensive line, wherever that might be. Here comes our next trade at number 22. This is another one that I'm not necessarily certain that the Chiefs are going to do, but it's not a huge move to go up from 32 to 22 and wouldn't require too much draft capital to make it happen. So the Chiefs, from the Eagles at pick 22, Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback, Alabama. The L'Jarius Sneed trade may do a number on the Chiefs' defense. Even with nickel corner Trent McDuffie breaking out and being a first-team All-Pro, they still almost have to draft a corner to play the outside. Everyone at Alabama has the pedigree and the physicality to succeed in the NFL. Kool-Aid McKinstry is no different and should be one of the more productive corners in this class over the course of his career. With their second selection of the first round, at number 23, the Cardinals from the Vikings, Chop Robinson, edge, Penn State. Assuming Arizona can get both of the Vikings' first rounders for their number 4 pick, they do well to use one each on offense and defense. With Jared Verse and Dallas Turner gone, the Cardinals can still get a freakishly athletic pass rusher here. Robinson didn't produce at a prodigious level in college, but he has the best speed and explosion of any edge in this draft, and the technique can always be developed. If I were redoing this pick, I would probably go with Laiatu Latu, but as you might imagine, you'll hear his name pretty soon anyway. Next off the board at number 24, the Cowboys, Jackson Powers Johnson, interior offensive lineman, Oregon. In his 1 year as a starter, Jackson Powers Johnson was a first-team All-American and won the Remington Trophy as the nation's top center. The Cowboys' once vaunted offensive line now really needs help. Zach Martin is 33 years old. Starting left tackle Tyron Smith and center Tyler Biadasz left in free agency. They have essentially no choice but to draft a lineman for long-term security, which you're getting a ton of in Jackson Powers Johnson. We head to pick 25 with the Packers selection, Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. The Packers lose former All-Pro tackle David Bakhtiari, guard John Runyon Jr., as well as swing tackle Yosh Nijman. Not a pick made for fun here, but he is another 6'8" tackle with good athleticism that could play either side, and the Packers are certainly going to need that in this coming season. Now we have the Bucs selecting at 26th, Darius Robinson, edge, Missouri. Calling him an edge rusher at 6'5", 285 pounds might be generous, but that also is the beauty of it. Let him play more 3 technique and 4 eye, especially on rundowns, and be selective about putting him on the edge. Antoine Winfield was second on this team in sacks last year, by the way. Antoine Winfield plays safety. That is a huge problem. Now moving on to pick 27 in the first round, the Cardinals one more time. Jerzon Newton, defensive tackle, Illinois. If any team deserves to pick 3 times in the first round, it's this year's Cardinals. They had the league's worst run defense and only had 33 sacks. Newton was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-American, playing and dominating against tons of NFL-caliber offensive linemen in the Big Ten. Hopefully, with all these additions and more, the Cardinals can work their way back to relevance. The Bills pick next at 28. My pick for the Bills here, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas. If Jerzon Newton and Byron Murphy II are both off the board, expect the Bills to take the best available receiver here. Josh Allen has done unbelievable things with only one standout receiver in Stephon Diggs for his whole career. It's time to get him some help. Mitchell ran an electric 4.3 4.40, caught 11 touchdowns last year, and averaged over 15 yards a catch. Sounds pretty Buffalo Bills to me. Hey, you're going to hear future me editing this here. The Bills just traded Stephon Diggs to the Texans for a second-round pick next year, plus Buffalo threw in a 6th-rounder this year, as well as a 2025 5th-rounder. This is a ghastly, heinous, foul trade for Buffalo. They should probably try and trade up for an even better receiver now, but I'm not sure if they're going to have the draft capital to do it. Baffling. For the Lions pick at number 29, I'm going with Laiatu Latu, edge, UCLA. No, I don't believe the Raiders will trade Max Crosby to the Lions as much as I pray for that on draft night. If Latu hadn't missed the 2020 and 2021 seasons at Washington due to injury, he could definitely be the first edge off the board. In fact, he still could be. Consider this. He won the Ted Hendricks Award as the nation's top defensive end. 13 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he led the nation this past year with 21.5 tackles for loss. The Lions are still going to give Aiden Hutchinson what he so desperately needs. That's another impact defender to play on the other side of him. Just 3 more picks to go here. Number 30, the Ravens. Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State. Being the offensive lineman of the year in the Big Ten is incredibly high praise. Do you know how many Big Ten linemen are going to be picked this year? The Ravens unfortunately can't count on star left tackle Ronnie Stanley to be in the lineup every game anymore, and they traded right tackle Morgan Moses this offseason. Secure one of those spots and count your blessings. Now the penultimate pick of the 2024 first-round mock draft, the 49ers, Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. The need is glaringly obvious if the Niners want to keep their Super Bowl window open at all. Patrick Mahomes threw for 333 yards on 74% completions in the Super Bowl. Getting Talanoa Hufanga back from the ACL injury will be huge, but they really need to find another playmaker at corner to complement Charvarius Ward. Terrion Arnold had 5 INTs and 17 passes defense last year, and he can be elite in press coverage from day one. And finally, at pick number 32 in the first round, the Eagles, with a trade from the Chiefs, Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M. The Eagles have picks number 50, 53, and 97 within the first 3 rounds to address the secondary. They should definitely do that. Dallas Turner is the only guy I've mocked so far in this draft that really projects as an off-ball linebacker, so I'll sneak one more in here. Edgerrin Cooper had 17 TFLs and 8 sacks in 12 games last year. He's a first-team All-American, and it's hard to quantify sheer violence, but you do know it when you see it. With any luck, Edgerrin Cooper turns into what Nakobe Dean was drafted to be, a good sideline-to-sideline athlete and a true enforcer looking to take people's heads off. So there you have it, all 32 picks from my 2024 first-round mock draft. Again, I think Michael Penix falls just slightly out of the first. It is disappointing to not have any running backs going in the first round either, but history suggests that's likely. If one of them does go, I imagine it will be Blake Corum or Jalen Wright. The quarterbacks will greatly influence the trades. The teams that take linemen will disappoint fans in the short term and get great value in the long term. I predict Brock Bowers at 10 will be the number 1 value pick of the first round when paired with Aaron Rodgers. Thanks so much for the support on the first episode, by the way. Let me know who you think deserves to be a first rounder, who do I have way too high or too low, and what other trades do you see happening on draft night? This has been episode 2 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
As he falls to the ground, shoots and scores! First pitch, base hit! Walk off! Catch and shoot 3, bang! Dagger!